So if anyone has any challenges with that, feel free to remove your name or voice or image, and you'll be kept anonymous in that way. So we'll begin. All right. Welcome everyone to Peace Through Action USA's Transgender Film Festival of 2023. I'm happy you decided to join us tonight. We will celebrate Pride Month tonight by holding this free one-night-only virtual film festival screening of 3 short films that increase public knowledge, challenge stereotypes, and promote the visibility of the queer and trans community. We also have 2 exceptional spoken word poets with us tonight who may or may not be sharing poetry, but they will most definitely provide perspective and commentary. And we'll conclude the evening with an engaging community conversation. But first, we're just gonna review some of the event arrangements briefly. Just to remind you yet again, this is being recorded. If you don't want to disclose your personal information, that's at your discretion. Type questions or comments in the chat, please do. Introduce yourself if you wish. Share your name, location, and organization affiliation. I know we have a national audience tonight, so if you can share where you are and a little bit about yourself, we really welcome you to do that. This is a really kind of special opportunity for us to meet throughout the USA together and have some kind of inter-community dialogues that can give us some new perspective. So thank you for joining us this evening. We're going to view and discuss 3 short films that seek to remedy the absence of authentic representations of transgender people's lives and experiences in the mainstream commercial media. We'll gain insight into the nuanced lived experiences of queer and trans people and expand our understanding and attitudes to better promote peace in our communities. So here's an overview of our evening together. As I mentioned, this is an active learning event. So first we'll introduce our speakers. You'll get to know a little bit more about Nico and Mackenzie, who we have with us tonight. We'll then engage in 3 rounds of film viewing and dialogue reflections. Each round will involve a film viewing, a small group breakout session, and then a whole group reflection. And lastly, we invite you to record any of the questions or themes for discussion that come up for you, because we'll conclude the evening with an interactive Q&A discussion. But before we start our film viewings, I want to share a brief introduction to our guest speakers. We welcome 2 featured presenters tonight, Mackenzie Beninati and Nico Wilkinson. They are both here to provide commentary and perspective for us. And you also have me. I am Peace Through Action USA's Director of Programs and Partnerships. And if you've been in previous virtual events with us, you've met me before, and if you haven't, howdy. So let's begin here. We'll learn more about our speakers, but first I just kind of want to tell you a little bit more about the organization, Peace Through Action, and what we do. So as the organizational host, I just want to introduce us. We're a national scope organization. We have an exciting year ahead, so please spread the word to your friends and family about our virtual event series. There's many events that we do every year, and we're wanting to do more engaging kind of media type events of this nature. So we encourage you to return with us. But the nature of our work is that we activate and equip Americans to implement practical, peaceful solutions to aggression and violence in their communities and our country. We do this through a variety of youth and adult programming. And I just want to highlight the main project right now that we are working in is Calvert County, Maryland. We are working in the Calvert Peace Project. And this mission is to increase understanding, collaboration, and community among youth and adults in Calvert County, Maryland. And we do so by providing civic and social engagement activities with a focus on peace. We're able to do this work in credit to our most generous funders, Broadview Church, and we're so grateful for their support. They've really helped us to build our work, and yeah, we just wouldn't be here without them tonight. So I really want to highlight and thank their contribution to our work. So first we have Mackenzie Beninati. I'm going to read a little bit about Mackenzie's bio so we can all get a better understanding of her. Mackenzie Beninati is a poet, ultra marathon runner, and professional live voice transcriptionist from Park City, Utah, by way of Colorado Springs, Colorado. As a performing poet, presenter, and speaker, Mackenzie integrates her lived experience as a transgender athlete and former blue-collar worker in a style informed by Ferlinghetti, Andrea Gibson, and the slam poetry movement. Mackenzie has 2 self-published chapbooks, has appeared in We Grow Anyway, Deep Overstock Literary Journal, and has performed in the Moab Pride Slam, Grand Junction Slamming Bricks, DC Capturing Fire Slam, NPS National Poetry Slam, among others. She's proud to spend her day-to-day working in the accessibility field, providing closed captions for people who are deaf and hard of hearing. When she's not writing captions or poetry, Mackenzie is out trail running in the Wasatch Mountains of Utah. I've included Mackenzie's full bio here for those who are curious, but Mackenzie, can you please introduce yourself and explain what inspires you to speak with our audience tonight?
Thank you, Chris. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay,
Yes.
sweet. It's interesting for me to be on this side of the Zoom meeting. Usually I'm behind the scenes writing live transcripts for Zoom meetings for groups like this, departments of government. Like, this is so strange to actually be the subject matter expert. And to be called upon as a subject matter expert on my own lived experience as a trans person for a transgender film festival. I couldn't pass up that opportunity. I didn't really have an idea of the mission and work of Peace Through Action before Chris asked me to come on. I just knew that whatever Chris is working on is definitely worth jumping on board and providing a little insight for if I can. So definitely happy to participate tonight. And yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Mackenzie. We're so happy to have you with us tonight. All right, great. So now I'm going to introduce our second speaker, Nico. Nico Wilson is a poet, organizer, and artist based out of Colorado Springs, Colorado. They are the organizer of Keep Colorado Springs Queer, an award-winning open mic by and for the queer community of Colorado Springs, started in 2016. In January 2017, they released Inauguration, winner of the Pikes Peak Art Council 2017 Award for Best Publication, a collaborative book with Idris Goodwin, which celebrated resilience in the midst of the hostile political climate. They are the 2017 champion of Capturing Fire, the National Queer... sorry, someone just asked to record, so I agreed. The National Queer Poetry Competition and Summit. They are the founder of the Quail, Queer Artists in the League of Love Club, a collaborative living space and farm that operated from 2017 through 2023. Their poetry is a celebration of that which lies beyond resilience in the face of adversity, audacity. Writing from Colorado Springs amidst the time of anti-trans violence, they examine the relationship of trans people to this world through the lens of nature's relationship to humans. Their poetry, much like the local flora and trans people who live there, is rooted in the experience of queering the inhospitable landscape that is Colorado Springs. So we welcome Nico. And Nico, can you please introduce yourself as well to our audience and explain what inspires you to speak tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And you know, I never really turned down any opportunity to speak, which I think comes a little bit from being a performer for so long, where I kind of threw myself at every available option, like open mic or poetry slam or anything going on. But also it comes from a place of my excitement of getting to meet new people that I wouldn't otherwise meet. and also just share my experience. And as was stated, I'm mostly a poet. That's how Mackenzie and I came to know each other, from being in the Colorado Springs poetry scene together, and then eventually living together, and just, you know, like, our paths have crossed so many times and in so many ways. Uh, and that's another beautiful part about transness and queerness too, is that community brings us together. So, you know, I'm really inspired by this event. I think that trans representation in media is so important, and so I appreciate y'all for highlighting it, and I appreciate you for having me here, um and for giving me the opportunity to answer questions, because, you know, I also appreciate experiences where I get to answer questions that people might have, but that they might know that you shouldn't just ask any average trans person as in their day to day. But this is a very appropriate space to ask questions, and so I am excited to be able to help people understand more that they don't.
Great. Thank you so much. We're so thrilled to have you too. Thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you.
All right, great. So, you know, we just heard from the intentions of our speakers, and, you know, for the audience, we really encourage you also to share what inspired you to attend this event with us tonight. Is there anything you're hoping to learn? Can you please share that in the chat? We would love to see. And these questions and these intentions are things that we hope to shed light on through over the next couple hours. So yeah, please share your intentions and what inspired you to be here with us. And so as you're doing that, I just kind of want to express a few things: that this is a safe container for learning, growth, understanding, and connection. That said, there are a few things that this session is not. It is not a public debate forum. It is not a political podium. It is not, and it is most definitely not a space that tolerates violence in any form. That said, it's a capsule for learning and growth. So we acknowledge that everyone came here to learn, which kind of presupposes that you have something still to learn. So that's totally okay. And we encourage you to do your best and try. And if you encounter challenges along the way, that's okay. That's why we're here. This is a petri dish of culture. This kind of range of subjects can be hard to talk about. I may not even be the right person to be talking about how hard they are to talk about. But sometimes we have personal beliefs that complicate our ability to expand our awareness of other people's experiences, but also, and maybe more significantly, we live in a world that configures gender through binary terms. Our language is often fraught with barriers and challenges as well. On this slide, I've included an image from the Matrix where they're able to kind of see through the binary code that makes the Matrix. And so I just kind of want to like highlight maybe that tonight also is a little bit of our ability of unplugging from the Matrix, or at least being able to see some of these maybe invisible forces that are working beneath our current awareness. So that said, we are the products of culture, but we're also producing culture right now. And the event tonight is literally culture being cultivated. So we're all responsible for that cultivation, and invite everyone here to take part in that. So that being said, we're watching 3 films. That list of films is not exhaustive. It's merely, you know, I don't want that to be generalized to the trans experience. It's merely intended just to provide a small window, but does not and cannot cover the vast and wide range of lived experiences of transgender people. And if anyone has anything to add to that, I invite that as well. But I kind of wanted to bring up the Mullah Nasruddin. I don't know if anyone is familiar with the Mullah Nasruddin, but I am really into folk tales and storytelling, and have a master's degree in oral storytelling. And the Mullah Nasruddin is a character who is probably my favorite. He's a Sufi wise old fool. And he can be found in Persia, Turkey, the Middle East, all throughout the Mediterranean and India, and he's basically the antithesis of crotchetiness. He's an elder man who goes about his life as a fool, and by being a fool, he stumbles upon wisdom. And I kind of invite everyone to take that same perspective, to have the courage to ride our stubborn donkey backwards. And I think that the greatest teaching of the wise old fool, you know, the genius of the wise old fool, is to have an open mind so that the wisdom and knowledge that we have does not get in the way or obstruct our ability to acquire new understandings. So now I'm just going to get us into the bones of what we're doing here tonight. So we'll have 3 rounds of film viewing. With each round, we'll watch a film, and then afterwards go into a breakout discussion, and then as a whole group come together to reflect upon certain themes together. So are there any French chefs in the audience, or anyone who's familiar with cuisine or cooking? In kind of restaurant speak, there's a thing called mise en place, which basically means getting everything ready so that when you're about to cook a meal, you have all your stuff in the proper bowls and your pans are all in the right place. So right now, I'm going to do that for us. I'm going to put in the chat all the links that we'll be using tonight. So those are all here for you. And now I'm going to walk you through the directions of how we're going to go through this film festival together. So we start with step 0. On your computer, you're going to have both the Zoom meeting that you're in right now, that we're all in together, and a web browser open on your computer. So if you don't already have that, which I'm assuming everyone does, just open another web browser. Open Safari or Firefox or whatever it is that you use. And then I'll give you the next kind of thing, what will happen. So from what's in the chat, you're going to copy the first link for the film from the Zoom chat. And if you don't know how to copy, you basically just highlight and then hit Control-C. And that will copy that link for you. I believe you can probably also just click the link and it will take you there too. And then while you're watching, we're all going to turn off our Zoom cameras and microphones so that we can eat our popcorn in peace. But I encourage everyone not to leave the Zoom meeting. Instead, just minimize it, you know, because without the camera, without the microphone, it's totally okay. You can just come back and we're all here. I'll be holding down the fort while everyone is watching the film. So then you're going to paste the link from the Zoom chat into your web browser, or just click the link, which will take you to that film. And then we're going to watch the short film individually. And while you're watching, note your thoughts, feelings, and reflections. And then we'll come back once everyone has finished watching the film to the Zoom meeting and be ready to share your thoughts and reflections together. Since, you know, we'll see how everyone is feeling. We may do that as a breakout group. We may do that just as a whole group conversation that is a little bit more fluid. So we'll see what goes best with everybody. But as I said, we could either do a breakout session and then lead into a whole group discussion. So while you watch, just try to record any questions or themes. Yeah, be ready to interact after this, okay? So right now we're going to learn a little bit about our first film here. Our first film is Miller and Son. This is the winner of a 2019 Student Academy Award. A trans woman mechanic lives between running her family's auto shop during the day and expressing her femininity at night, until an unforeseen event threatens the balance of her compartmentalized life. So using that link I just posted in the chat, with no further ado, we're all going to hit that first link and watch the film. And when you're done watching the film, please return. So we'll return in about 22 minutes. So when it's 7:47, please come back and we'll all connect again. But remember, do not leave the Zoom meeting. Just minimize it. And I'll be here if anyone has any questions or anything about that. So I'm available to you. All right, everybody. Um, hope that was an insightful experience. um, so now we're going to engage in a breakout session. This will be brief, and then we'll. Oh, sorry, that's my timer. Everyone is back. Okay, so this will be a brief breakout session. I've put some themes for discussion here that you can just kind of chew on together, or if you have other ideas, feel free to just share the reflections that you have. Some of the themes that I kind of noted were compartmentalization, disclosure, professional environments, gender performativity, self-protection, family, work-life balance, in a kind of absurd way, safe spaces, and more. So for newcomers, I think we had Elizabeth and JC. We're really excited to have you with us. We just watched our first film and now we're talking about it. So we can either go into breakout groups or just hang out here as a whole discussion. I'm not sure what everyone prefers. It seems that some people's cameras are still off, so I might encourage us maybe to stay as one full group for the time being. So does anyone want to begin at this point? I'm going to stop talking because I don't want this to be a thing where everyone feels like they're reporting to Chris. So I invite you all to start just talking amongst yourselves now. And I'm going to mute myself. So I invite everyone else to lead the conversation from here forward.
This is Kathy. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
I don't know anything about the topics that you put up for discussion, Chris, but I was filled with this horrible sense of foreboding throughout the entire film. It might have had something to do with the music, but I just kept waiting for something awful to happen. And it kind of did, but it wasn't as awful as what I imagined. And the other thought I had as I was watching it was people are so threatened, and I don't get it. I just don't get it. Those were my thoughts.
Kathy, I totally agree with you about the feeling of foreboding. Oh, I'm sorry, Christine. I just saw your hand was up.
No, it's okay. You can go ahead first.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I had this visceral reaction throughout the whole thing. I felt like my heart was beating faster and again, just sort of waiting for something bad to go down. And I just that little 20 minutes of that was so uncomfortable. Just imagine going through life that way. It just must be so difficult.
Well, to go off of what you just shared, Sherry, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about the most was the weight of that silence. For most of the film, it was quiet. That middle part, nobody spoke. And after a while, I was noticing how long it had been since someone spoke. But then I realized the importance of the weight of that silence. Because just as we were feeling that forebodingness, that's kind of the fear and the constant anxiety that trans people are going through, all the time. When is someone going to bring it up? When is somebody going to see me when I didn't want them to see me? Am I safe? Are they going to out me here? Is it going to be, dangerous? Is something bad going to happen? And I thought it was pretty well captured with that silence.
Yeah, no, I agree that those silent spaces are some of the most weighty. My experience of coming out and particularly interactions with parents. And in my situation with a male parent, where there's just so many assumptions in your head and ways that you want to uh, behave and compartmentalize um, and all the games that I have played before coming out to my family. It's just so weighty, and this really captured it. It was really important to see, and yet, and that thing at the end where his father is trying to come out of that silence, um, in response to the "I love you." Um, Also, those really uncomfortable. I, I want to acknowledge you as, my child, and yet I don't know what to do with that. Powerful.
Do you mind if I jump in real quick, Chris? I don't want to dominate the discussion because you guys are so great. From my personal professional experience of having to write captions for Zoom meetings, and some discussions, people the organizer has to pull teeth to get people to talk. So this is great, and I don't, as the guest speaker, I don't want to like dominate the group chatter. But I just heard something, Andrew, real quick. I do know that actress that was in the short, Jesse James Keitel. I think we should default to using she, her pronouns when talking about her and the character in that short. Um, I don't know the mind of the character in the film, but I'm assuming that that's how Ryan would probably feel as well. We could also use Ryan, the name of the character. And I don't want to talk for too long, but one thing that did stick out to me is when she's talking to her friend outside of the club, the dance scene, and the friend's like, "Hey, have you thought of any names yet?" And Ryan's like, "Well, Ryan can go both ways. Literally, how I chose my name as the accessible androgyny of Mackenzie, and it being already a middle name that I had to make it easier for my parents because I know that experience. You guys, a few of you mentioned the weightiness of the silences and like just what it is to approach that conversation. Um, Sometimes even when you make it easy, it's not easy enough. I do want to caution one thing though, because I heard a few comments about how it must be so difficult to go through life like that, and how there's this sense of foreboding in the film. And so, like, life as a trans person must be always so dangerous, wondering like when the bad thing is going to happen. It's also super mundane to be a trans person. We just like go through normal life. I put my bra on one boob at a time like anyone else. So, so it's not always the horror. There are the horrors, but that's not the whole thing. Thank you.
I just wanted to say I'm really glad you said that because I was, you know, I think that sometimes because I've engaged with so much queer media throughout my life, sometimes I can feel a little hypercritical. So like I just want to say that I really appreciate this film. I really appreciate um Asher's way of depicting this particular experience of being trans. But I do think that in a way it can speak to kind of a bigger issue that sometimes comes up with queer media, which is like a big focus on the trauma of queer life, um, which like is very real, and it's important to raise awareness of that, especially when it comes to letting cisgender people in on the experience of being queer. Um, and for anyone who doesn't know, cisgender means that you identify with the gender that you were assigned at birth. Um, but also like queerness is full of joy. Like a lot of my best experiences and happiest experiences come from being in community with other queer people, and like the great audacious beauty that comes from knowing and being around queer people. And the and just the inherent like joy and freedom that comes with that. And who knows, maybe we'll see some other perspectives, but just something to keep in mind that it isn't all trauma. It is also mundane stuff, but it's also a lot of joy too. But it also depends. I mean, like that joy, that joy can be harder and harder to find depending on the circumstances you're in. Like if you are around people who don't understand you and who don't support you, it definitely makes things harder.
Yeah, I think the watching the film, the you could see the joy depicted in the dance scenes and outside of the club, and it just had, you know, I'm no expert on cinematography, but it was a very different look to it versus being, you know, at the auto shop, and just the whole, the music, the camera angles, the colors, everything was different. So I mean, I'm assuming that's what they were trying to portray in that was, you know, the joy versus when you're having to not be your true self.
Alrighty, folks. Well, I'm going to just do my host thing and suggest that we move on to film number 2. In the chat, let me pull that up for you again so you have the link in your mise en place. But I'm pretty sure if you just scroll up a little bit, you can pull it up. So here's film number 2. And just like before, we'll dip out, but just hang with me for a second so I can read the description for you. Nasir, a transgender musician, comes out to several family members over the phone as he recounts the steps towards his decision to transition and composes a song to himself. So just as before, we're going to watch the film. We kind of know the drill now. You're going to paste the link into your web browser, turn off your camera, watch the film, and then we'll return in about 19 minutes because this is a 17-minute film. So I'll see you all at 8:19. And thank you so much for contributing to this conversation. So enjoying this. So see you in a bit. I'll still be here if you need me, hanging out.
Hi, hello. I think I can hear you, but I'm having trouble getting the link. I went back and looked at my email, but I can't find the link
Okay.
there.
Okay. Do you know where the chat is on Zoom?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna
Oh,
post.
just look in the chat. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I'll put it up there again for you. We're on film number 2.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. Thank you. Alrighty. If you finished the film, please return to us with your cameras. Great. And we'll run this the same way we did in round one. So now we're just on the second round of films. We're sharing out our thoughts, feelings, reflections. I put some themes up for discussion here. Communication, acceptance, identity, family, coming out, self-expression, community, speaking and listening, and more. So with no further ado, I am going to stop talking.
I might have been typing and missed this, but are we sharing now? Um, I thought that was a great representation of trans joy, and just the self-love aspect of the trans experience and just the deep they had fallen in love, with Nasir, and they were giving such love to both Sophia and Nasir, and that was beautiful. I thought that was a great representation of. And I think they're also really like well adapted. I think that was a really good representation of somebody who was having a successful, healthy sort of transition.
So I'm going to break my own rule and unmute myself. But what really struck me about this film was also just the idiosyncratic relationships and how nuanced each relationship over the phone felt. And it made me feel like, dang, like if someone were calling me, how would that conversation unfold? And how comfortable would they feel to have to bridge that conversation with me, you know? So that really just kind of that stuck out to me of just how significant those seemingly like invisible processes of forming relationships with people actually have like really like meaningful outcomes in people's lives.
I appreciated how the film captured just how coming out is a process and not something that happens just once. And how it's a very nuanced process. It's incredibly relational based on like who you're speaking to. Those conversations varied a lot depending on who Nasir was talking to. And I also appreciated the realness of those conversations. Like some of those really were very reminiscent of like conversations I've had primarily with other transmasculine people, but yeah, really, the film really just captured that in a great way.
It really helped me to see, like when Asiya was talking about Sophia, Sophia then and Nasir going forward, um, this sort of it's integration with self, like it's all the same person. Um, and I never thought of it like I would always think that like the dead name goes away, but like for the person coming out, it's the same person, um, but just their expression and what they want to be called um, is is different. But really, it really helped me to see the integration of lives, like a life before and but a life moving forward, and it's really the same thing. So I was a good experience for me.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that was a beautiful expression of that integration. And it was also just, it was beautiful to see that these conversations don't have to be so fraught. That there was a lot of humor and laughter and, you know, difficult things too, but it wasn't this heavy, awful thing. You know, it was a conversation. And that was nice to see.
Yeah, also the idea of Nasir wanting to collaborate with his past self is like the most like trans artist thing I've ever heard. Like Nico can attest to how real that is. Like I know a former housemate of ours that I'm sure has done that. Um, I just love the authenticity of that film. It's like there's so much in that to relate to, and I'm glad that everyone in this group got to watch that. Christina, I liked what you put in the chat about what your partner said about how they wish they could have shared this during a work training because yeah, honestly, it just showcased the breadth of experience as far as like what does it look like to give yourself shots and to come out to different people and negotiating relationships with grandparents who maybe don't catch on, but like, oh, I'll give you a cigarette if you call me mijo. Like that was just the best.
And I'm stuck with one of the last things that Nasir said, which is I'm doing it for me. It was almost like the ultimate generosity to 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 self, right? Like it's for you. Um, I never thought of it that way, but
And especially after pretending for so long.
Any other thoughts or reflections? Maybe a totally different direction, something that's going against the thread that we're currently on, or adjacent to, or just divergent from. No pressure.
It's hard to be a human and it's hard to get it right. And um, I think that creating community and spaces where we get to be our most authentic selves is really important because we're beautiful. And, you know, pulling it all in to get along, that's not to the benefit of ourselves or our communities. So stop.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm with you there.
and I was also struck by what appeared to be the journey or the stress associated with like this idea of coping and creating alter egos to explore those maybe unknown things from within. Um, get sure that there is this other side, which is the self awareness piece keeps growing. Um, Even though there may have been a recognition at age 6 that what that looks like and feels like and how it's expressed um, is still something to cope with and understand and grapple with. So there still is that inner inner journey.
Okay, wonderful. I recently heard a painting term called horror vacui, which is the tendency of an artist to want to fill every empty space on the canvas. And I'm feeling that a little bit as facilitator, so I'm trying to um temper that, and also, just to express that, like, the kind of empty, um cameraless individuals or empty chairs in our audience. There's also that sense that, I know there's thoughts and reflection happening privately. And so if you want to at all share in the future, I invite you to do that too. You don't have to have a well-formed, articulated idea or reflection in the current moment. And if you want to maintain that privacy, do so too. So no pressure there. In the chat right now, I'm posting both the link to film number 3 and as well as the survey. If you've already put the survey up on your browser, I do want to ask if you could just refresh it or put it in your browser now as it stands. Just notice that it needed to be updated, so it's all set for you now. But link number 3 is there, and we're going to watch film number 3 now. And this film is called Pink Boy. Pink Boy is an intimate portrait of a gender-creative boy growing up in conservative rural Florida. I know a thing or two about that. Butch lesbian BJ successfully avoided dresses her entire life until she adopted Jeffrey, who, to her shock, starts to dance in gowns and perform for his parents. So just as we've been doing with these rounds, we're gonna paste the link, turn off your camera, turn off your microphone as well. We're gonna watch the film, and then we'll return and reconvene in 17 minutes. I'll be here at headquarters if you need me. Otherwise, thank you everybody so much for contributing to this event. I'm so just absolutely psyched for the conversations we're having. And I'll see you in 17 minutes. All right. right, great. Well, it seems like we're pretty much all back now, or at least close to that. So just as before with the first two rounds, we're going to do the same. I've put up some themes for discussion here that we can explore and discuss. And yeah, just as before, I don't mean to leave the group hanging, but I do want to remove myself here to encourage everyone to contribute or have that space to share. So I'll do that now, and I invite you all to go forth.
Well, I'll start. I loved it. I loved seeing Jessie get to be herself. And I, kudos to her aunt for being the sort of mother that that little girl needs. And still the of being able to be authentic on Halloween and maybe safe on Halloween when everybody's pretending and willing to suspend. Just really, that one rankled me. I'm glad she's a beautiful little princess. I'm glad. I'm so grateful. And still, just one day a year, that's pretty sad.
I love this one too. And it's identifying as a parent with a queer child, that feeling of trying to balance the encouraging them to be their authentic self and your own worries about safety, is so hard as a parent. And then I also, I see this beautiful child being so joyous, and then I think they're in Florida and all the things that are going on there, and it breaks my heart.
I work for a queer youth center, and one of the statistics that we know is that having at least one supportive person in a queer young person's life decreases the chance of negative outcomes really very exponentially. And so it was very heartwarming to see just such a supportive family, but also with nuance, and that the the guardian of this child being also queer, but also because of her own experiences of homophobia in her life, and then also wanting to resist femininity, or like just the experience of having femininity forced on her, and then having to like contend with that was also very cool to see, because it's interesting to see the way, I mean, often we don't see narratives of queer children being raised by queer adults, and uh and so it's interesting to see the ways in which those experiences can bump up against each other, because of course one would just assume, oh well, if your child is queer and you're queer, then it should just be like easy, but there are reasons why it might not be. And I think this really illuminated that in a very while also just having so much like empathy and compassion for both of those experiences coming together, and then being able to work past that and still realize, like, just because this was my experience doesn't mean that like that I should deny this experience. So I thought that was really beautiful.
I love how much love you could see in that little family, and how the most important thing was the happiness of the child. Like from the beginning, even when you're getting the narrative behind the apprehension of this mother who is also a great aunt who just wants to make sure that, like, we take care of people's kids because of what she went through, and wanting to raise a boy, but placing more importance on her child's happiness than the idea of, like, oh, I wanted a boy. I think that's beautiful. It was really difficult not to, like, just cry through the whole thing. Also, kind of like looking in a mirror, because that is exactly what I looked like as a small child. So
I don't think I've ever given much thought to what the experience would be like for a queer parent to have a child that they realized was going in a different direction. I really loved what, I think it was the mom, I'm not sure which of the women it was, it said, my interests are not leaning toward the pink. And I thought, oh yeah, I can, yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way, but she was so loving and accepting and promoting the joy in this child that you could see in the last scene with the dancing. It was very moving, very moving.
I just had a thought because of what you just said, Kathleen, which is that um, the the queer mom whose interests are not leaning towards the pink did something really cool for Halloween, which is that she took her child to someone who did know hair and makeup. Like, I don't know any of this stuff. I don't do the lipstick. I don't do the dresses, but here's my friend with a salon who will get you ready to be a princess for Halloween. Like, that's what we can go to community for. And that's what is, like, so important to understand as a parent or a friend or an ally or a community member, is you may not have the tools because that's not your interest, but, like, here's what I can do for you is I can take you to someone who knows, and they can make you a princess.
Yeah, and I had a thought of, I wonder how different the coming out process was for Jesse's adopted mom, and then watching Jesse, and maybe with generational differences, just wanting to grow and let maybe it be different for Jesse than it even was for her. Um, so another piece of sort of how mom was stretching herself, and doing what needed to be done. It hit home for me as I don't, I couldn't have, I was in the closet for so long that I could never have done that as a child or allowed somebody to do it for me because I didn't know how to bridge all of that compartmentalization in my own life. But that someone was willing to do that for Jesse, it's mind blowing. It really is for me.
I'm also going to just interject doing my host thing, and would like to just highlight some of the positive and just notable remarks that people have made. So I won't read them out because they were communicated via chat. I'll let them stay that way, but I just want to shine some attention to that as well. I think those are really meaningful and important reflections for us to pay attention to as well. So we're pretty much at time here, but I don't want to close out preemptively if there are still questions or threads of discussion. But I am going to do my nonprofit thing, and I'm going to ask that you all either tonight or tomorrow, please submit your responses to this survey. It really helps us gauge what kind of programs are bringing benefit to the community, and I'll just kind of peel, kind of pop the hood a little bit and let you know, we've been trying to find things that resonate with people, and I feel like this event has been a really special one. So I would love to hear people's thoughts and reflections, but I don't want to have that crowd our closing, but I do want to put that out there, that it would be really valuable to us to receive those reflections that you're all sharing verbally and via chat. It really helps kind of figure out, because I mean, events like these, also putting them on, pretty much for the community for free is something, we want to make sure we're serving people in that way. And I think this event has done that. So personally, that's just where I'm at. But that being said, I would also like to close us with a few more threads of discussion. So, I just kind of want to prompt us to think about some of the goals that people shared when we had all entered this experience. I remember some people were sharing what they wanted to learn. So, maybe this is the time, if you haven't had a question that you've had answered, or, if you still have something you're curious about, or maybe you want to share something that you learned through the experience. This is just a kind of free moment to share out some Q&A or any reflections.
Something I wanted to say is I wanted to apologize for being a little too critical of the first film. And I think it's because, especially growing up queer in the late 2000s, early 2010s, in high school when I first came out, they're just the amount of media representation was really, really bleak. One, there wasn't a lot of it, and two, a lot of it just seemed to follow this same sort of pattern. And none of it painted a pretty picture for what my life ahead looked like, and so sometimes when I feel like I'm seeing what might feel like that, what feels reminiscent, I can at times feel a little bit like, oh, okay, here we go, but it is true that they did show moments of queer joy in that film. And it's also true, and I know this very well living here in Colorado Springs, that things can get really scary too, and that it's a balance. So I'm just, I didn't want to discount anyone's experiences of that film.
Thanks for sharing. And I would like to also just mention, as a curator, I have my own limitations. And so, I guess with that, personally, a question I have is, for Nico and Mackenzie, are there any films that you would suggest, or any other kind of threads that you wish were included in tonight's program that you feel like may have been omitted in just, my blind spot as the curator?
Let me think on that. I would say, what I'd also say is short films are different than we're not typically going to see short films in more mainstream media necessarily. And so, um, you know, let me think on some shows and I'll let you know.
Great.
I actually really appreciated the diversity of experience presented between the three short films. I think you did a good job as a curator pulling together threads that explored a whole range of trans experiences. But I can definitely also put some thought as to what could be included next time.
Awesome.
It's hard to say everything that you want to say in a short film or even a series of short films or even a 2-hour program with group discussion and it's just amazing how fast time flies when we all have like deep responses to the media that we're reflecting on.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Well, now I would like to just provide an opportunity for us to share any resources or community efforts being implemented in your local areas that you know of supporting trans and queer people. I know we had Christina on with us tonight, and I just kind of want to elevate her work in Calvert County. She's going to be joining us as an intern at Peace Through Action USA, and she's been doing a lot of work to start dialogue circles for queer and trans people, and it was, I think, really generated out of some of that same observation that Nico presented of, having other queer people in the community that you can reach out to and relate with really goes a long way. So that's one resource I would like to share with the group. And if anyone has any other things that they're conscious of, whether that be in Calvert County or outside or more nationally focused, love to hear it.
So there is a PFLAG group for Southern Maryland. I know it's Calvert St. Mary's. I'm not sure if Charles is included as well, but they have events. I think they do circles or discussion groups and things like that. So that's something to check out.
All right, great. Well, I'm gonna close out tonight. I would like to thank everyone for being here with us. Some opportunities to engage with us in the future. You can volunteer, join more events like this. You can invite us to present to your group. And that being said, I just also want to highlight, thank you so much to our speakers this evening. Mackenzie and Nico, we are so grateful for your presence here. Like, I can't even begin to thank you enough. And it's really cool to reconnect. And I'm just so thrilled about having you with us tonight. So thank you both so much. That being said, for anyone in the audience, we are wanting to help kind of make sure that we're being relevant and fitting what the community is really like seeking. So I would love to have an interview with anyone who would be open to doing that. Really looking forward to hearing people's thoughts about the experience in a more kind of in-depth way. And similarly, we have an advisory group for the Calvert Peace Project that we're forming. So anyone who would be willing to just provide insight, it's a pretty low time commitment, 1 to 2 hours a month. So that's something that we're really eager to invite people to attend and contribute in whatever way they can. So again, here's some contact information for the Calvert Peace Project, as well as contact information for Peace Through Action USA. I can't thank everyone enough tonight, and thank you both for your presence here. So I'm going to
Thank you,
close
Chris.
out.
Thank you, Chris, for
Thank you.
organizing this. It was really, really good, interesting, and thought-provoking. So thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, thanks everybody. And with no further ado, again, I'm going to stop talking and close the chat.
All right. Good night.
All right.
Thank you. Good night.
All right. Good night, everybody.